You are listening to the Heartland Author Podcast. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, I had the opportunity to interview Sheryl Bass. Sheryl is the author of the Magical Fairy Tale Adventure series, which includes the books Baby Dragon's Big Sneeze and Baby Dragon Finds His Family, with at least one more story planned in the series. Remesh Ram illustrated both books. I'm here with Sheryl Bass, who is the author of the Magical Fairy Tale Adventures children's picture book series. Sheryl, welcome to the Heartland Author Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Feel free to introduce yourself to our listeners.
Okay, well, basically, I have two stories out now, two children's picture books. The first one is Baby Dragon's Big Sneeze, and the second one is Baby Dragon Finds His Family. And my background is that I have two master's degrees. I have a master's degree in social work and studied child development, and I use those insights to inform my picture book writing. And I also have a master's degree in journalism and have been working in public relations for about 15 years. And my first book, Baby Dragon's Big Sneeze, was an Amazon bestseller 4 times in its first year since publication, and it's earned 7 national and international awards, including 2 first-place wins. So I just published my second book, when Baby Dragon Finds His Family, October 24th.
Now, without spoiling too much of the first 2 books in the series, what are Baby Dragon's Big Sneeze and Baby Dragon Finds His Family about?
Great. Well, Baby Dragon's Big Sneeze is basically that a baby dragon is flying along and he accidentally burns down a village with a fiery sneeze. And the townspeople are really angry. They're ready to kill him or hurt him or beat him up or something. And but there's a little girl who enters his cave and tries to find out his side of the story. So it's about not making assumptions about others. It's about forgiveness. It's about apologizing when you've done something wrong. It's about teamwork and reciprocity and friendship, kindness to others, and so on. So there's a lot of messages, social emotional learning messages in there for kids in that first story. The second story picks up where the first story left off. So basically, well, it'll give you a little bit of a spoiler, but it explain the book is still great to read because the journey is worth taking. But basically, in the first story, the dragon decides to help the people rebuild, and they also help him feel better, get over his cold. So in the second story, he's living with the humans for a while now, but he's starting to get depressed that he has not found others of his kind. He doesn't have a name, because dragons are named by their mom or their dad. And so he doesn't have a name. And he also doesn't know anyone else that looks like him. So he goes on a quest to try to find others like him. And in the meantime, he finds an elf, a unicorn, and a fairy. And he helps them along the way with various different problems that they're having. And so you have to read the second book to see if he finds other dragons of his kind. But it's a good message. The second book has social emotional learning messages in there that are really good for kids who are adopted or for kids who have non-traditional family structures. And it also has the messages in there about kindness and serving others and so on.
The illustrator of your books is Remesh Ram. And what was it like to work with him or her on your books? I don't know if it was a man or a woman.
It's a man, and it was great working with him and Pryan Animation. He owns Pryan Animations, and they are in India. It was great working with them. I had a lot of creative control. In fact, I love that. That's one of the benefits of doing self-publishing versus traditional publishing. I was able to tell Remesh exactly what I want the dragon to be wearing, what I want the characters to be wearing, what's happening on each page, and so on. And so he would email me back with attachments with the pages. And it was like Christmas every time I would get the pages back, because it was really my world that I was creating in my head, I was seeing it come to fruition on the page. So that was really exciting.
Are there any more books after a baby dragon finds his family planned in the series?
Yes, I'll have at least one more story. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it in 2024 or if I'll save that for 2025. But I definitely will have a third story in this series.
You created a company called Be Kind Publishing. What kind of publishing company is Be Kind? Is it a self-publishing company, hybrid press, imprint of another publisher, or a traditional publisher in its own right?
It's a self-publishing, it's a sole proprietorship that I created for my own books. So I don't accept other people's books for Be Kind Publishing. It's just for my own books, mostly for my picture books. And the reason I chose to call my publishing house Be Kind Publishing is that it was inspired by the saying, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. And as we grow up, there's a societal emphasis on wealth and power, but kindness is truly what makes the world a better place. So it's an independent micro publisher of children's book founded in 2022. And the goal is to produce colorful, thought provoking stories for kids and their families to read and discuss. And we offer social emotional learning or pro social aspirational messages. And the books are in digital ebooks, paperbacks, and hardcover. And the idea is to create stories that parents and teachers would be proud to include on a child's shelf, a bookstore, or in a library.
How does your background in having studied child development help you with writing picture books for children?
It helps me in terms of knowing developmentally what age groups it's appropriate for. It helped me in really fighting for my stories to be in rhyme. I had tried traditionally getting the first book published, and some of the feedback I got was some publishers don't like rhyme. And but for me, I felt very strongly that rhyme, it has a lot of important developmental milestones can happen with children when they read rhyme. It helps with language acquisition, with vocabulary, with a sense of rhythm. It helps reluctant readers. It promotes creativity. I mean, this is why nursery rhymes are such a big deal. So I definitely wanted to make it rhyme. It also helped me in terms of developing social emotional learning messages. And social emotional learning, or SEL, is kind of a newer term. And it's those intangible soft skills that are so important in getting along with others, like sharing, trust, empathy, reciprocity, taking turns, teamwork, patience, taking responsibility and accountability when you've done something wrong. All of those kind of things that people need to learn. It's important to teach to children because they're more malleable when they're younger, and it's most easy for them to learn and apply those skills if they learn them when they're younger. And these are the kind of things that help them their whole lives. This is what employers look for. Who's a team player? That's all of that kind of. These are the more intangible kind of lessons. And so my social work background and my journalism background really informed my writing.
I didn't have this question written down, but it is kind of current events related in the writing world. Several days ago, Amazon's Goodreads social media ish platform for book authors and book readers announced that they were dropping the children's and middle grade category and a couple other categories, I think, that involved picture books and comic books and children's middle grade books, stuff like that, from their annual Reader's Choice Awards. But yet they added romancy, which is either romantic fantasy or fantasy romance. I don't know exactly which one, as a category on the Goodreads Choice Awards. How disappointing is it for children's and middle grade authors to no longer have their own category for the Goodreads Awards?
Well, actually, I mean, I would suppose it's probably disappointing for others. I've never applied for that particular award. I applied for about 12 awards and received 7 for including 2 first place wins for my first book. I mean, Goodreads is definitely a nice review site. I hope that they'll still allow reviews for children's picture books. As far as award competitions and so on, there's a lot of them. There's still many more that can be entered and successfully won. So
I'm going to move on to a couple of questions to finish this interview about that's not about your books, but the first one is about your work in public relations. What is a typical day in your line of work in PR like?
Well, the thing that's so great about it is every day is different. So I have clients in all different industries. 2 of the PR entities that I work for help authors. So I help authors in all different types of genres, but I also help restaurateurs. I also help retail people. I help people in all different industries get publicity for whatever it is that they do. So I used to be a reporter before I did PR, and so PR is very similar in the sense that you have to become a subject matter expert in whatever the client's subject matter is in a short period of time, and then promote them as best you can. So I find it very exciting. I really enjoy it, and I learned a lot about how to promote myself as an author from helping other authors in my work.
My last question now, you live near but not in Chicago, is that correct?
Yes.
And what is your favorite part of about living in the Chicago suburbs?
It's the best of both worlds. So I get to see some wildlife. We have a fenced yard, and I've seen raccoons, I've seen all kinds of birds, of course, squirrels and so on. Um, but we also, if in the suburbs as well, there's also a lot of things to do, great restaurants and shops and so on. So I'm not away from those things. And then in the city, if we wanted to go to a big museum or a big music concert or something, the city is not that far away. So we're far enough to have a little bit of some wildlife and so on, and to have some peace and quiet, but also we have the excitement when we want it to.
Sheryl, you were an absolutely wonderful guest for this podcast, and I thank you for appearing on the Heartland Author Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed it too.
I enjoyed interviewing Sheryl, as she was an amazing guest, and I wish her well on the next book in her series. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write your imagination. Bye for now. You can learn more about me and my book writing projects at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/authoraac. You can follow me on Facebook at AuthorAAC and on Instagram at AACScribe. Copyright 2023, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this podcast episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.